Hello everyone, Babyjace here, and today we are going to take a look at Mythic Blackhand. In this guide, we are going to go over the strategy used by my guild to kill it. Composition is going to be 2 tanks, 4 healers, and 14 DPS. While not required, 3 Moonkins, 3 Rogues, and 3 Hunters really help out. You can easily get away with 2 Moonkins and 2 Rogues however. As for tanks, Monk tanks are by far the best tank for this fight, and will make using the strategy in this guide a lot easier. As for the second tank, any tank will do. Overall, the encounter will be different from Heroic with many additional mechanics and changes to existing mechanics. Let's start out with Phase 1. Phase 1 is going to be the easiest and the least changed phase of the entire encounter. The only major difference from Heroic to Mythic is that not only does the slag fill the room much faster, but when it destroys debris or a slag bomb, it's going to deal 200,000 fire damage to the entire raid. Because of that, you need to tank the boss in the middle of the room and be very careful of your debris placement. The main major mechanic change that you're going to see throughout the entire fight is that Mark for Death now targets 3 people instead of 2 people, and if you get hit by this, you will get a permanent bleed debuff that will only go away if you die. It's very important that no one gets hit by this until Phase 3. Let's talk about the first mechanic you will face in this phase, the slag bombs. You will want to tank the boss as shown in the video and adjust yourself so that you do not trigger the bombs he places. After the second set of bombs goes out and when demolition is finished, move the boss to the middle and out of range of the mine so that a rogue or a tank with a strong immunity can blow them all up to clean up the tanking area. Once the area is cleared out, move the boss back and just don't hit the bombs for the rest of the phase. The next mechanic you will have to deal with in this phase, and the most challenging part of this phase, is Demolition. Demolition is going to deal massive damage, and you will want to set up healer CDs as well as an aspect of the Fox rotation, so that you have Fox for each demolition he does. The goal is to beat the 4th demolition of the phase. Also note, each demolition phase he will drop 4 massive debris onto the raid, so make sure that you are prepared for this, and so that no one dies. Try to place your debris along the inside of the ring you see here. You really don't want to place it out of the ring, or later in this phase the slag will almost always explode, usually when you need to transition, and you will already be taking a lot of damage from the Iron Star transitioning you. A thing to note is that monks as usual cannot be targeted by massive debris, so they are able to run ahead and just heal whoever needs the healing the most. Debris 3 seems to be the most dangerous one, and we put a barrier down towards the end of our kite in order to prevent as much damage as possible. Also, don't be afraid to health pot here. It's very important you do not die. Melee in this phase are going to take a lot more damage than ranged, as they really can't avoid massive debris as easily as range can. To help with this, we bopped a Holy Paladin on Debris 1 so that they could sit there and top the raid, as well as on Debris 2. For Debris 3, we used Revival, and this was usually enough to keep everyone alive. If you have to, don't be afraid to use Hand of Sacrifice or other CDs on the melee to help them live. Also, melee want to use their defensive stances if they have them, so Death Knights should go Blood Presence, Warriors defensive stance Glyph, and Rogues spam Feint, etc. Each smash in the first and second phase of the fight are going to deal a lot of damage, so you're going to always want to make sure you have a cooldown for this, whether this is your own personal tanking cooldown or a Hand of Sacrifice or something of that sort. For the third smash in Phase 1, you're also going to want to position yourself so that you are getting smashed over the range pile, so that your priest in your range can life grip you back down. The reason being is on the third smash there is a lot of slag in the room, and you will probably die to the stacking debuff that the slag will put on you unless you are life grip, or unless you are a monk who can break the stun with Nimble Brew. Once the boss reaches 70%, he will transition into Phase 2. Note the Iron Star that causes the transition deals fire damage to the raid, so you're going to want to make sure you use a Devotion Aura so that the raid doesn't get blown up going down and so no one dies. Phase 2. Phase 2 is the hardest phase of the entire fight. However, there are no DPS checks in this phase. The only difficulty is going to be performing the mechanics properly, that's it. The mechanics of the phase are pretty unforgiving however, so you will likely wipe if you mess something major up here. First thing you'll notice going into this phase is there are small fire circles on the ground. These are cinders dropping down from up above, and the closer they get to the ground the larger the circles are. These must be soaked, because if they aren't they will leave a fire patch there for the rest of the fight. Too many of them going unsoaked means the entire room will be covered in fire too early. Note, however, when you soak a cinder you will get a debuff that does roughly your entire health and damage over 8 seconds. Make sure you have people with immunity soak multiple cinders, and make sure you dispel the people who don't have anything to save themselves. The second major difference you will notice in this phase is that instead of being 4 of the same siege engines, there are now 4 different siege engines in the 4 corners of the room. The boss activates whichever siege engine he is farthest from. So if he's the farthest from the armored siege engine, he will summon the armored siege engine. Make sure you use this so that you summon the siege engines in a specific order. The 4 siege engines is as follows. Fire. This one has a flamethrower behind it and periodically leaves fire patches on the ground as it's being kited along. Nothing really major here to worry about, just don't stand in the fire. The second demo is going to be the armored demo, and the only thing special about this is it has 31 million health compared to 12 million health. The third demo is the explosive demo. When this siege engine dies, it will do a short cast and then explode for 600,000 fire damage to anyone not in the balconies or in the air. Immunity of this if you can, otherwise go up with the smash. Note, however, with the strategy I will be presenting, you will never have to deal with this mechanic. Speedy. This siege engine is incredibly fast and melees faster than all the other demos. If you choose the kite strategy not being presented in this video, you will need a rogue with burst of speed to kite this. However, if you follow the strategy being presented, you will not have to worry about how fast it goes. The last major change of this fight are the snipers in the balconies. Unlike on Heroic where you could ignore these, you can no longer avoid the snipers. After a certain amount of casts, the snipers will level up, and they go from soldiers to experienced to veteran, and with each level up they deal 100% more damage and gain 50% more life. This means they will go from dealing 20k per cast to 40k per cast to 80k per cast. If you do get veterans, this will almost 100% be an automatic wipe, as they will be dealing 80k per cast per veteran, and there is no way your healers can keep up with this damage. The debuff you get from going up to the balconies also lasts 40 seconds instead of going away immediately, so you will need to set up a rotation of people going up to the balconies so that by the time you need to go back up to the balconies, your debuff will have dropped off. Before you start the fight, make sure you set up a list for who is going up on what smash in Phase 2 so that when you finally get there, no one is confused and trying to figure out what they need to do. I'm going to provide 2 lists for you, one that my guild used and one that another guild, Razia, used. Now, the list for my guild is 3 Moonkins and the list for Razia is 2 Moonkins. So if you don't have 3, you can always just use their list. For the Huge in Japan list, on the transition, 2 locks are going to demon leap down onto the balcony and they're going to wait at the door for the adds to spawn. Once the adds spawn, go ahead and Shadow Fury them and just Chaos Wave them to death. Once they're dead, go ahead and jump down and start soaking cinders with the rest of the group. For Smash 1, no one is going to go up. For Smash 2, Moonkin 1 is going to go to the far side. For Smash 3, Moonkin 2 is going to go on the near side. For Smash 4, Moonkin 3 is going to the far side. For Smash 5, Moonkin 1 is now going to the near side. For Smash 6, Moonkin 2 is going to the far side, and for Smash 7 and 8, no one is going up. You want to push to Phase 3 before Smash 9. Make sure on the smashes that no one is soaking, that the tank taking the smash is getting a Hand of Sacrifice. Now, if you're a Moonkin going up, the easiest way we found to handle it is make sure you have Celestial Alignment up for use on the balconies. You're going to want to Starfall, and you're going to dot everything with Nature's Vigil up, and you can pretty much stay up there until around 28 stacks of the fire debuff. Now, if you're going up multiple times, you really need to make sure your Celestial Alignment is back up and ready again for the next time, and unfortunately this means you will be chain casting Wrath even when you're in Lunar because of Wrath's shorter cast time. That's okay though, you're just trying to kill this boss, not trying to get a high rank. If you don't have 3 Moonkins though, you can still do it, it will just take a little bit more work. With Razia's list, they only had 2 Moonkins, so we'll see what they did. For the transition, they had 2 locks going to the balconies, just like in the first list. Smash 1, no one went up again. Smash 2, Moonkin 1 goes to the far side. And 1 Warlock and a Healer goes on the near side. Smash 3, no one goes up. Smash 4, Moonkin 2 goes to the far side. Smash 5, Moonkin 1 goes back up, this time to the near side, and 2 Warlocks and a Healer go to the far side. However, you can do it with 1, it's just a little more risky. Smash 6, no one goes up. Smash 7, Moonkin 2 goes onto the near side. Smash 8, Moonkin 1 goes back to the far side. As you can see, it's definitely doable without 3 Moonkins, just a little bit harder. Now before you start asking what's the near side and what's the far side, The near side is the balcony right next to where you'll be tanking the boss for the majority of the phase, and the far side is obviously the balcony on the complete opposite side of the room. Also on Mythic, it's very important to bait mortars away from the raid, and the way we did this was using 2 to 3 melee and our Mistweaver monk to sit on the opposite side of the room under balconies against the wall and stand there while they were mortared. The first 2 demos will each use mortar once, while the 3rd, 4th, and 5th demo will chain cast mortar. This means once the 3rd demo starts mortaring, your bait team has to stay out there full time until you transition to Phase 3. Phase 2. When you start the phase, you will see cinders all over the place. It's very important that you soak as many of these as you can without dying, of course. This means if you have an immunity for the debuff, you can soak 2 to 3 cinders depending on how lucky you can get. However, make sure at least one rogue or one hunter saves their cloak or deterrence so that a little bit later you can clear up some slag bombs. It's okay if you miss some cinders in the direct middle of the room or on the far side of the room where you won't be spending the majority of this phase tanking because you'll never pretty much be there, but make sure that you always clear out all the cinders where you will be tanking. While your raid is soaking cinders, the non-monk tank needs to tank the boss on the opposite side of the room of the speedy demo door, so that the speedy demo is summoned first. The monk tank needs to position himself in front of the door where the speedy demo is, and everyone else needs to make sure they give him some room so that it fixates on him and no one else. Once it does fixate, as long as your back is against the gate it came out of, it will turn around and proceed to melee you and knocking you back. But because your back is against the gate, it won't actually knock you back. You'll just stay there tanking. But make sure you don't move. If you do move to left or right, it can start knocking you back, and this will be really bad. While this is happening, the first smash should go out, and the boss will start heading his way all the way across the room towards the monk, who at this point is tanking the speedy demo, and it'll start meleeing him as well. If you have to, Hand of Sacrifice him or pop a cooldown so that it doesn't kill you. If you can, have the tank position himself so that the smash sends him toward where the boss goes to, so that he can taunt it back faster. Once he is on the demo tank, he will begin his mark for death. For this first mark, go ahead and leave it on the monk tank until it goes out, and the reason why is because the boss is inside the demo's hitbox and it will hit the demo with all 3 marked for death, meaning that the range really doesn't have to move on this first one and you can just sit there DPSing the boss. Each set of marked for death does 10% damage to the demos, 20% with the slag bomb, and you need all 3 sets of marked for death to hit the demo, so to make sure you don't do too much damage to it and kill it before the 3rd marked for death does. Once he does finish his first set of marked for death, the other tank should taunt and pull it out, positioning the boss as you see here so that the boss tosses one of his 3 mines behind the tank, putting it near the demo so that you can slag it. The other 2 mines go behind the boss, so be careful. At this point, he will do his second marked for death, and 1 second after he does marked for death, Smash 2 will start happening, so make sure your Moonkin can get in and get smashed to the far side. You will have many attempts where the Moonkin gets marked for death right before he needs to go up with Smash. If this happens, make sure the tank positions himself and the boss so that the Moonkin can displace your beast in and more or less be positioned for the smash, as the smash takes about 1 to 2 seconds to go off, right after the mark for death. A lot of your wipes in this phase will happen because of this. It just takes a little practice to learn, but once your tank and the Moonkins get positioning down, this won't be a problem anymore. Just do your best to avoid slag mines when you're blinking in. His 3rd marked for death should kill the demo, so that your monk can immediately make his way across the room to get the fixate on the fire demo. We generally blew up the slag mine on this demo, so that the 3rd marked for death did 20% damage to it and killed it. While your monk is going across the room to get the fire demo, keep the boss put until he actually summons out the fire demo. Remember, the farthest one from him is summoned, and if you move him early, the wrong demo will be summoned and you will wipe. Once the fire demo is out and fixated on your monk, go ahead and move the boss to the middle of the room while the monk kites straight across the room, hitting mines if you can along the way until he is tanking it at the same spot that he tanked the speedy demo. Around this time, Marked for Death goes out as well, and you just have to run behind the demo again as it's moving to hit it. While this is going on, have one of your rogues use Cloak and clear out as many mines as he can so that the tanking area is clean. Once Marked for Death goes out, Smash 3 will happen, so position yourself so that you are getting knocked up to the side you need to go to, which is the near side. The next smash happens after the 3rd Marked for Death on the fire demo, and this demo must be killed right here so that the monk can rush over to the boss. This is incredibly important because he also summons the third demo after this smash, and if the monk is not near the boss will run back to him and summon the explosive demo third instead of the armor demo. Even if the fire demo is still alive after the third marked for death, your monk needs to go to the boss anyways, as it's very important that the armor demo is summoned next, not the explosive demo. As you can see in this video, you will see where our tank pulls him to, and he pulls him pretty much to the middle of the room towards that wall, so that it always summons the armor demo. Once the armor demo is summoned, make sure a rogue or a hunter is the closest target to it so that they can get the fixate. The goal here is to feign death, vanish the fixate off when the closest player to it is the tank. We had a lot of attempts where it looked like the tank was the closest, but in reality he wasn't. Stress how important it is so that no one be near where you are dropping a fixate, because if a non-tank gets the fixate, it's pretty much a wipe. The monk will tank the armor demo where he tanked the speedy demo and the fire demo. Keep putting marked for deaths into it, and keep making sure your moonkins get into the smash for balconies. Note, however, on this armor demo and throughout the rest of this phase, you will not be DPSing the demos. You will just putting all of your damage into the boss, as you will no longer be killing demos. Just keep putting marked for deaths behind them so that no one gets the bleed debuff. Right before Smash 6, he summons the explosive demo. Make sure a rogue gets this, he should be out there anyways for the mortar baiting. And make sure you kite it straight through to the other side, making sure the tank on the boss and the melee remaining behind and DPSing the boss don't get hit by it as it drives through. If you want to help, go ahead and cloak to clear out some of the slag mines, assuming no one will get hit by them. Dropping this fixate is a little trickier than the armored demo, but with a little practice you will consistently get it. What you need to do is bring the demo into the monk, cut through the front of the armored demo, walking past the monk to the other side of the armored demo, and vanishing off the explosive so that it refixates the monk. Again, stay away from this demo so that it always refixates the monk. At this point, the monk will be taking a lot more damage. If you need to, go ahead and bop the monk and he will take 0 damage for the duration of bop while keeping the fixates. Try your hardest to make sure the mark for death goes into the armored demo, not the explosive one, and do not do any extra damage to the explosive demo. On progression, we had a very good pull quickly turn into a wipe when multiple people were padding on the explosive demo for no reason and it exploded, wiping the raid. Don't do this. Once you have cleared Smash 6, you can ignore Smash 7 and 8, making sure you hand of sacrifice the tank and just burn the boss to phase 3. The speedy demo will come out somewhere towards the end of this phase, but it should refixate on the monk tank as he is already there with 2 other demos and should be the closest. Note, however, when this does happen, Mark for Death is also going out, so when you are running behind the demos to hide for Mark for Death, don't be right next to them or it could fixate you instead of the tank. It's very important that as long as you're behind it, you can be far away from the demos, just don't be right next to them so you don't get the fixate. Unlike the transition to phase 2, the transition to phase 3 is physical damage and you cannot devotion aura this. Make sure the raid is topped off and hit a small personal if you can. Save the big 3-minute personals for later in phase 3, however. Phase 3. Phase 3 is the simplest phase in terms of execution, but the true difficulty of the phase lies in the quickly out of control damage that the raid will be taking as everyone gets a permanent bleed debuff, along with the furnace dealing more and more damage and the raid running out of room. Because of this, you will want to save your big personal CDs as well as your healer CDs for the final moments of the phase, as the damage becomes quite intense with everyone having a bleed debuff and the furnace dealing way more damage than it did at the start. There's only one new mechanic in phase 3 and it's debris. 5 pieces of debris fall down from the floor above 7 seconds into phase 3 and every 45 seconds afterwards. Each one is signaled by a giant brown circle on the furnace, and if it hits the furnace it will leave a gigantic slag crater similar to the boss's massive smash. Because of this, you must soak the first set of 5 debris as well as the second set of 5 debris, or your raid will quickly come out of room and wipe. After the second set of debris, you can only soak the ones that are going to be in your way where you need to go. If there's a debris landing somewhere where there's already a giant slag crater, you can go ahead and ignore that. If you stand under where the debris will land, no slag crater will form, but you will take 600,000 physical damage split between everyone soaking it. This means that the best classes for soaking debris will be hunters and mages, because you can immunity the damage easily. Not only that, these classes also have great mobility, so they can get to the debris quite easily. Make sure you set up who is soaking which section of the furnace. To help in soaking the first 2 waves of debris, make sure you have a stampeding roar for each one. If you don't have 5 people who can soak debris, you can also use Blessing of Protection on one of your ranged members, and they can soak it as well, since Blessing of Protection will immune you to all physical damage. Any debris spawning in melee can easily have a rogue soak it with Feint. Positioning for Phase 3 is pretty simplistic. For the most part, your range will be stacked together in the middle for AoE heals, only moving over slightly to soak a debris near range or to move away from the slag crater so that you don't take extra slag damage. Reducing the damage you take in this phase is crucial to downing the fight, as if you take too much damage, it'll combine to healers be falling way too far behind. The boss still does attach slag just like he did in Heroic, so make sure you put these near the melee but not on them, so that when the giant slag crater forms from his smash, they are inside the big circle he creates and not in somewhere where you need to go. Real estate is everything in this phase. He continues to do Marked for Death, but in this phase you cannot hide behind anything, and Marked for Death pierces through players until it hits the original target. So that means you cannot have people trying to soak for you. If you're using the add-on Bigwigs, you can download the Blackhand Assist Bigwig add-on, and it will help out with Marked for Death by making your character say left, right, or center. With this add-on, we found the easiest way to deal with this mechanic was to have the 3 people go to the right of the range stack, and then spread according to their sage chat. The person who said left is left in the line, whoever said right is right in the line, and whoever said center is between the left and the right. Use blinks or disengages or abilities like that to get back to the range once the Marked for Death knocks you back. And make sure you bop your healers so that they don't get knocked back, because healing in this phase is absolutely important. Your healers must be healing at all times. As on Heroic, he does Massive Shattering Smash once he reaches full energy, and 4 people must soak it. If you have 3 rogues, you will want the 3 rogues and the tank without slag to soak this ability, with the tank staying down to taunt when he smashes so that he doesn't move. If you don't have 3 rogues, you will need your 2 rogues and both your tanks to eat the smash, making sure whichever tank has the slag bomb uses a personal cooldown or gets Hand of Sacrifice so that they live, because they are taking 100% more damage. Make sure one of your tanks has a way to instantly get back to the boss to keep the boss there. You don't want the boss going into the middle. Warriors have Charge, Monks have Transcendence, Guardian Druids have Displacer Beast, so make sure you have one of those classes. The key to this phase is to not panic. Use your real estate wisely, and don't cleave the Marked for Death onto people. If you can do all that and soak the debris, you are in good shape to get a kill. If you enjoyed this guide, go ahead and hit follow and subscribe. Every subscribe really helps me when I'm trying to figure out what I want to do for future videos, so everything helps. And if you enjoyed, leave a comment. If you have a suggestion, leave a comment. Just if you need to ask a question, go ahead and leave a comment. I'm going to be checking all the comments, and I'll be responding pretty regularly to them. Thank you.